For those people who don't know you, Tom, about 10 years of sales experience, worked at Gong as an account executive. That's how we got introduced. And now you're on the entrepreneurial journey as a sales trainer. So how's that been going?
It's been going good, man. As of this recording, it's about just short of 7 months off of my W-2, running my own business, doing sales training and coaching and consulting. And it's always been a dream of mine to run my own business. And I'll tell you, it's been freaking hard, man. It's been an uphill grind. You're catching me on a great day. Like, this has been maybe the best week of business, like the whole year. And in June was like a bad month, and I was getting down on myself. And then this week, like, closed my biggest contract ever on Monday. Closed another one today. Got a bunch of boot camp signups today because I was promoting it pretty hard. So, like, I'm feeling good today. But like, as an entrepreneur, I have found it's like, it's really the peaks and valleys are really sharp. Just like when you start in sales, it kind of like leveled off as I got better and more progressed in sales, and then it just spiked right back up this year. So I'm working to stay a little more even keel and trust the process.
Well, congratulations on that. I know champions create separation on Fridays, and we find ourselves recording this on a Friday afternoon. I was just watching your video of you were $600 short of your sales target, whatever it may be. And I'm curious to hear how you set those targets, because now no one gives you a quota. You set it yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't close revenue, you don't make money, and it's literally a matter of survival. But you started sending out some LinkedIn posts. You got some folks to sign up for the boot camp. How did all of that work with that last second push of just getting scrappy and creativity?
Yeah. So in terms of the goals itself, I've set a number of goals, and it's like on my first year of business, I really didn't know what to expect. And so what I did was I set different like levels to what the business could be. So like the first level is like, am I making any money? Then like level 2 is, do I make enough to cover my expenses so that I'm not losing money every month based on like my rent and food and all that type of stuff. And then the third level was, can I create a 6-figure business? And then the fourth level, I've got this like paper right here, it just as a way of motivation. Then the fourth level is, will I make as much as my W-2 salary? And then the fifth level is quite a big jump then to a 7-figure business. And then there's more levels from there of like financial freedom. But for me, the big level, I'm past the level of living off expenses and whatnot. And for me, my next level is like, I wanted to create a 6-figure business. Like, I want to hit the 100K mark. And I found that I was like within spitting distance of that going into July. So I'm like, I want to hit the 100K mark. I actually haven't told anyone this except my girlfriend and like my best friend. I texted him today. And so that was the goal I was talking about. I woke up this morning, it was like $99,382 or something like that. I'm like, my boot camp is $350. I got to be able to sell 2 of these today to get to 100 grand and be able to like celebrate that tonight. And so for me, that was the goal. Surpassed it today, so it feels really good. And now like on my next goal is going to be to replace my W-2 income or get to that level. And so 100K in the first 7 months. So a little bit behind pace of what that would be for where I was at W-2 wise, but still possible. I'm on the upswing, and I'm just trying to enjoy the process. So I'm trying to enjoy this milestone, celebrate it, and then we'll get back after it, afterwards on Monday.
Well, hey, we're partying right now. This is like a party.
Yeah.
We're here to we're here to celebrate success, and that's why I'm so happy we can do this, Tom. Because I remember vividly, like 2 years ago, watching your YouTube channel. I somehow came across it. You had a really catchy name, Millennial Sales, something like that. And I'm like, I'm a millennial in sales, and you're sitting in this San Francisco apartment with this bald dude that seemed like he knew what he was talking about, and whoever else. You're sitting there sipping wine. I'm just like, man, this is cool from the outside looking. It's cool. It seems like there's community. But and what I want to eventually get to is, I know you've talked about, in many respects, the isolating nature of moving to a new city and trying to build a network. So I'm interested to pull on that thread. But before we get there, I want to ask you, what was that inflection point of you're finding success, doing sales, making a lot of money, W-2, and now you say, I'm going to venture off on my own and start my own thing, because I know a lot of people think about that. I know a lot of people think step one, let me get a side hustle, but someone like yourself, a couple years, perhaps minimal progress compared to some of the other people you were looking at. So you start to question, okay, is it worth it? And then you start the business, and then there's these peaks and valleys you talk about. So just take us into your mind of what was the moment, I'm going to start my own thing, and then now that you're in it, you're starting to see some success reaching toward these milestones. How do you stay even keeled in those moments?
Yeah. So in terms of like starting my own thing, I've been wanting, one reason out of many that we're similar and connect is like we both have families that have a small business. And so it's been in my mind that I wanted to start something. It's just like I've always been attracted to that idea. And so when I first started my podcast, this is like 6 or 7 years ago, I did it. It was me and my best friend were living together in San Francisco. We both had sales jobs. And we were killing it. The first, 10, 20 episodes, we had Hall of Famers on. We had, best-selling authors. We had The Wolf of Wall Street was like our peak moment. And we were killing it. And I was like, I looked up all these cities in the country where we could pay way less in rent, like places in Ohio or Indiana or Montana. I'm like, dude, if we go to live in Bozeman, Montana, we could pay $500 in rent. We could quit our jobs. We could be podcasters. Like, let's go. Let's do it. And I had him like on the 1 yard line, and then he's like, no, I'm going to take this other job in sales and make like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, all right, that's fine.
Fair
so I've been wanting to do it. And then I just haven't really found like my idea. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it kind of just came to me. Like people, as I was growing my brand, growing my network, I already know that this has happened to you. People started asking me for, do you do training? Do you do sales coaching? I just started saying yes and grew that to a point where, while I was working my W-2 job at Gong, I was making enough money to at least cover my expenses and was growing that business. And it became just so much work that I decided like, okay, I'm going to put a year's worth of savings in the bank. If I completely fail, I've got my safety net. I worked with a coach to kind of work on my mindset to get myself ready. And then by the time it was like the fall of 2022, I decided, now's the time, let's make the leap. At the worst case, if things fail after a year, I can go back and get another job. But I know I'll regret if I don't do it. And so that was really what led me to do it. It took me like 5 years to gain the courage to actually pull the cord. But I'm glad I did it.
What were some of your key learnings with your coach?
I met this woman kind of coincidentally through this program where we were both coaching salespeople. And she was a SaaS sales leader for about 10 years. And there was her company, went under pretty much during COVID. And so rather than get another job, she decided that she was going to try to do, create a coaching business. And so she built that successfully, and we were just kind of talking about it one day after we were teaching classes, and I was really just fascinated by, the nuts and bolts of things. Like I got like the inspiration part. I read all these books. I feel like I know what an entrepreneur is and what they do, but I wasn't really sure. There's so many details about a business. Like how do I make a product? What do I productize for training? How much do I charge for it? How many customers should I be landing a month? How do I also, potentially not, how do I not go crazy while I'm doing it? How do I, avoid the crazy highs and lows that I was talking about? And so what she really helped me with was like the X's and O's of like, hey, here's what you can charge. Here's how you put it together. Here's how you find the clients. If you get these, then like get them on a retainer package, get referrals. Like she gave me the blueprint. And once I felt like I had a blueprint and I saw it on paper, it's like a big scary thing in my head. Like, wow, I'm going to leave my job and start something. And then once I saw it on paper, I'm like, well, I could do that. I only need that many clients and I charge that much and I do this much work. And it's like, I could find that. Like I just knew once I saw the numbers that I could do it, and it became way more achievable for me. And so it just like was a light switch. Once we started working together, had a conversation with my manager and was ready to go all in, and then really just haven't looked back since that moment. So it was like 5 years of of fearing the jump, and then like one day I was like ready to go and haven't looked back.
It's so interesting because you can sit here, you can scroll LinkedIn all day, and you can see some of these guys, and even people like myself. You start to flaunt your W-2 income, or you start to talk about how much money you're making online, and then you instantly, at least for me, I like benchmark myself to them. I'm like, okay, how do I stack up compared to them? So when you start to leave that corporate realm and you're on your own, hopefully it starts to force you to look internally to say, okay, well, what is enough for me? How do I replace all of my expenses? How do I make up for what I was making my W-2? Okay, if I get this to six figures, that'd be pretty cool. So that's the reality of this game, and it's cool to see you living that firsthand.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And even as I was sharing that number at the beginning of the call of hitting six figures, there is still a part in my brain, because I'm competitive, of like, for me, that was a big accomplishment. In my mind, I went from like, I don't know how to start a business to I built a six-figure business in 7 months. And so to me, like, I'm very proud of that. I also know plenty of people that have sold way more in way less time. Like, we're both friends with Chris Orlob. He's a mentor of mine. I mean, dude left Gong around the same time as me and has, easily a seven-figure business, and is growing much more quickly than mine is. And so, there is something to be said about like, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish, right? And part of that is like your income. Part of that is what type of company or what type of job, what type of work do I want to do every day? And one of my favorite quotes is, how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And so for me, it's like, well, how do I want to spend my days? Like, I want to work hard, but I also want to, like, I feel very purposeful in what I'm doing. I feel like I'm making an impact on people. That makes me feel good. And I like building something from scratch. I find that like puzzle to be very interesting. And, I like not having to report to, to someone at the end of the day of like, a boss. I like calling my own shots. So, there's plenty of parts that are challenging, but like, I chose this life, and I chose, like, I've got my own goals for how I want to do things. And, and that's the path I'm on. And I would encourage everyone, whether you're a salesperson, entrepreneur, or otherwise, like, find your own path that you want to go down, and like, put the blinders on a little bit compared to like who you see on Instagram or LinkedIn, and just like, what do you actually want? And then go figure out a way to kind of get there.
It's so interesting, and I want to close the loop on this point. So long story short, I'm looking into some different companies right now. I'm potentially gonna sprinkle my feet back in the software sales game, and I want to come back to that later in the conversation, since I know last time we were together, we were talking about what's next, at least for me. And take someone like a Chris Orlob, mega successful, has this company. Imagine who he looks to, and he's like, man, if only I could be doing that, then I would be super satisfied. I was looking, and I guarantee he has someone, and then that person has someone else. I was looking into companies this week, and I was sitting there thinking, stroking my ego, okay, I went from SDR 1 to 85. I had this one big income earning year. I've got this following, whatever. I'm cool. And then I look at this company that I'm potentially going to apply to. In 2018, he founded the company, and literally less than 3 years later, the company's valued at $1.6 billion. And wow. I'm just like, okay, take a step back. That shatters your ego. And you're like, well, look at what he's accomplished. And then you take another company like Deal, for example, the basically HR hiring platform, whatever it is. They founded that company in 2019, and they reached $100 million annual recurring revenue in like 18 months. It's valued at $12 billion. So then you look at it and you say, okay, well, there's levels to this. Someone like Elon Musk makes $40 billion year to date just based on stock appreciation. So there's really no point in doing the comparison game. And when you start to say there's never enough, then it just gets in this disgusting spiral. So I know something that helps at least me with that is community. And I know that that's something you began to provide to other people. This sounds like a scene out of a horror movie, but you posted, I find myself in an Airbnb in Austin with 26 people I've never met, and it's you speaking to them. Talk about what that experience was like, beginning to form a community group, and what some of your key top experiences were from that.
Yeah. Dude, that was the 3 days of the most like fulfilling professional, work I've ever done. And so I'll take a step back. I find that like in my sales career, there have been, I consider a successful salesperson there's three main things that are important for them to be at their peak. One is the actual tactical sales skills. What do I say on a call? What do I say in an email? How do I negotiate? All that type of stuff. Very important. The second part is like the inner game, right? Are you tied to, like, where's your mindset on a day to day? Do you have a positive mindset? Do you have goals that you're going after? Are you tapped into any sort of like vision? Do you feel fulfilled by what you do? Are you jazzed to go to work every day? Because, if you just say, I want to make 200 grand, that could get you going for a little bit. But if there's a deep purpose to that, I want to pay off my student loans. Okay, that'll drive you for a while. I want to, afford a wedding, or I want to buy a house, or, I have kids and I need to support the family and I want to create generational wealth. Okay, now we're tapping into a deeper purpose. So do you have that? And then the third is community. Like once you get to the top of the mountain, do you look around and you're like, where are my people at? Or do you have people that are with you and supporting you, that are like-minded, that are helping you on the bad days, that you can cheer you on the good days? And so I found that at multiple points in my career, I've had many points. I've had one or two of those working and not the third, and felt like shit. Even if I was making a lot of money, even if I was, meditating every day and working out every day, and things like that. But when I've had all three, I've felt unstoppable. And so I was talking with my friend Alex Kremer. Do you know Alex?
I've seen his name on LinkedIn. I've seen you post some of his stuff. So I don't know him personally, but I know he's in the game.
You guys should know each other. He's a good dude.
Get me into one of these retreats. Get me into one of these.
Yeah,
retreats.
okay, we're gonna, dude. I'm gonna get. We got one coming this fall.
Hey, Columbus, Ohio is an ideal location. Come on now. Get out here in the Midwest, Q4 time frame. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I bet. So we were talking at the end of last year and just kind of catching up, and we were talking about this type of stuff. And he's been to probably like dozens of these types of, he calls them an immersion, whether he's part of like a mastermind group or a men's group or all these different groups, and they get together and they do like a retreat. And so he's like, we should do that for salespeople. And I'm like, hell yeah, we should do that for salespeople. And so the end of the story here is we went to Austin, Texas. We had a group of about 30 people of sales professionals. So there was account execs, directors of sales, VPs of sales, a couple of BDRs. We brought in guest speakers to talk about sales. We brought in guest people to talk about the inner game. So like there was a former Zen monk that was there. There were breathwork coaches. There's a guy who did ice plunges with us. We were doing visualizations and journaling and sharing deep shit. People were like really opening up their heart. And then we did some fun stuff like for community. We did big dinners every night. We did some group activities, and just like got to know each other. And to start off the event, I was thinking like, man, this is just going to be like, we're going to be salespeople. We're going to be like talking about prospecting and stuff, which we did a little bit. But like halfway through the first day, a dude opens up and he's like, I shouldn't be here. I tried to commit suicide 8 years ago. And this is my journey of like, getting whole with myself. And then someone else was talking about, being a father and, the struggles of being a father and a VP of sales at the same time, and the struggle between those two and the dichotomy between wanting to be successful and wanting to be there for his kids, and just on and on and on the list went. And we opened it up, and people were crying, people were laughing, people were hugging, people were like having breakthroughs. I've been to a Tony Robbins 4-day event, and by no means are we Tony Robbins, but it was like that on a very small scale. Like people were having breakthroughs. And so I left that feeling like, dude, this is like, that's what I should be doing. Among other things, like that is something that I really want to lean into. And I think that, I went for a long time of thinking if I only focus on like my sales skills, I'm going to be good. And that is a really important part to it. But like these other two levels of like what's going on between your ears and like who's around you and who can you be around with to support each other, like those are so important. And so I want to bring more of that into the game, into the sales game, into the SaaS sales game.
And you talked about, there's really 3 layers that you've learned over your 10-year career. First was when you got exposed to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Napoleon Hill and just starting to visualize success and write down goals and whatnot. The next layer is working on your inner game that plays into the positive self-habits, meditating, just taking care of your nutrition, whatever it may be. Can you talk about what the inner game looks like to you today, and how you're thinking about developing yourself and getting better?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, yeah, I think when I think about the inner game, I think about it in a few different ways. So one of them you mentioned meditating, like some form of mindfulness. So some people turn to prayer, some people turn to meditating, breath work. These are all like different ways to kind of, in my opinion at least, get your brain to a certain place. I journal. I have moments of gratitude. So I copy a little bit of what I learned from Tony Robbins. And so I treat the first hour of my day as sacred. And so that's when I get a lot of the inner work in, because I feel like that sets me up for the rest of my day. And so like I'll get up, I'll drink some water with some lemon, I'll go to the bathroom, do all that type of stuff. And then I'll spend some time like in reflection. I'll just spend like 10, 15 minutes meditating, focusing on my breath, seeing what comes up, how am I doing that day. I'll spend some time journaling, kind of like brain dump. I got all these thoughts, and some of them are like, man, I'm going to crush the day. And some of them are like, man, I'm worried about this deal. And some of them are like, about personal relationships and, all these types of stuff that happens in life. And so I'll get those all out onto a piece of paper and start to feel good. I'll think of a few things that I'm grateful for. And then I'll get into like, what am I going to get done today? Like before I go to the to-do list, before I go to the calendar, like before I shut my eyes tonight, like what are the 3 things that I'm going to do to win the day? And I don't care what anything else that gets done. What are just the 3 things? It's like I might have a killer podcast with Trent. I got to get my workout in, and I'm going to make, 50 cold calls or whatever it's going to be like. And if I do those 3 things, that's my win. And so like I always set my day up like that to set myself up for success. And then like I'll do other things periodically to work on the inner game. So like I think, I read every day. I go to therapy every other week, and that's been a game changer for me since COVID, of just like having someone to talk to and getting my thoughts out. I still work with that coach. So we meet twice a month and talk about the business, and I talk about like where I'm at and what my ideas and things like that. And I'm looking for an entrepreneur group in Chicago. I'd like to have one locally. And it's like I'm meeting people one-on-one, but I'd like to get part of like a particular group to, kind of build on with each other and be able to talk about, things that we're all working on and share ideas and things like that. But so for me, it's like taking that time in the morning, and then there's like, what are other ways that I can just keep my mind sharp? And like, to me, there's, getting good sleep. It's like eating healthy. It's like, I don't drink very frequently. I'm not doing like a bunch of drugs. I'm not out here partying all the time. And so like, I think all of that contribute, and that's not how it used to be for me. So to me, that's like, that all contributes to, I want to show up when I'm here. We're doing this for an hour. Like I want to be 100% Tom. Like if I do 78% Tom, I'm doing you a disservice. I'm doing me a disservice. I'm doing your listeners a disservice. And I feel the same thing for a sales call. I do the same thing for a training. It's like, people are giving me their time. Like I want to show up, and I got to do that stuff if I want to show up, or I personally, I feel burnt out and I can't deliver on what I promise to people. And so that's how I want to, work on the inner game to show up.
One of my key notes here that resonated most with me, that to close the loop on that third bullet of lessons you learned, is that isolation game. And I think it plays into one of your meta points of the therapy and seeking out community. You talked about, okay, you were in San Fran, the heart of tech, this big job at Gong, but then we're all forced to work remotely in 2020. So we're sort of isolated, although we're still on sales calls during the day. But then you talk about having the success, making money, but not necessarily having anyone to really share it with. And I certainly have resonated with that, because I've been in a place where you're just grinding and your main priority is the sales target, making money, and then you get back and you're kind of tired, you don't really want to do anything, and you may not have anything else going on or anyone to really share that success with. And then you just sort of look in the mirror and you're like, why am I even doing this again? Like, is this even what I want? And you start to really question everything, but then you strap back up the next day, you go back to work, and it kind of becomes this endless cycle. And then some people
Yeah.
can leave to go start a business or seek out community, or you're just looking for transformation. So can you talk about your journey with that, about just going through that period, and have you still experienced that, or like
Yeah.
just how that worked? Because that definitely resonates with me.
Yeah, man. Another way that we're similar, and I think I was just talking about this on a call earlier today with a guy that he's like, an ambitious, mid-20s salesperson, wants to be a leader, this and that, and then like is making good money, killing it, but like feels like shit, and he's working 60, 70 hours a week, and he just like doesn't have a crew around him, and it just like feels a little empty. And I think that's part of the game. Like part of the game is like you got to be ambitious. You don't have to be, but to be successful, you have to have that ambitious side. You have to have that go-getter. You got to put on the helmet, and like you got to have discipline and work hard and do it when you don't feel like it. But that only takes you to a certain point. And so to answer your question, I felt like early in my sales career, I was very fortunate I was in a sales pit. I worked for a company where I was in there, and I was very friendly with other sales reps, and we were all grinding together, and we're doing our thing, and we'd go out for happy hours and hang out on the weekends. And it's like, oh, this is sweet. And then once COVID hit, it was like just everyone else. We're working remote. I'm not leaving my apartment. I had some good friends in San Francisco that left the city for their own personal reasons. And so, and then I tied myself into a personal significant other relationship. And so like I had like my life was on a string of like this one relationship, very few friends that were local, and I was working like a dog. And then it got to a point where that intimate, relationship cut off. And so now I'm like, and some of my friends left. And so I'm like, all I've got is work right now. And I'm like, I'm looking around, and I'm doing great on paper. I got this great podcast. I work at Gong, and like my LinkedIn looks cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm lonely. Truthfully, I'm lonely as shit. And so that's why when all that hit the fan at the end of 2021, like I got up in my car and I drove east, and that's how I got to Chicago. Most of my, a couple of my best friends live here. My family lives in Indianapolis, which is, a 3-hour drive, so pretty close. And, I know some other people that are salespeople here, and I met a couple entrepreneurs here. And so for me, it was like, man, I still want to work hard. I still want to get after it. I'm still very ambitious. You see my goal sheets that I was showing before. But like, I want to have a full life too. And I find that like, spending time with some of these other people actually gives me energy. And so if I actually spend I'm still working 10 hours today, but then if I go spend like some time and have dinner with like my best friend, and then like I actually feel better coming back the next day, and I'm able to like really bring it. And to answer your other question around like, is it something that I'm still working on? Like absolutely. And that's, I think anyone that is, talking about ideas and selling like events and things like I do, it's easy to get caught in the trap of like, I've got it all figured out. I'm here to tell you, I certainly don't. And I felt like, I have a lot of friends that are in sales. And so when I was in sales, like last year, I'm in Chicago, I'm feeling good, I'm with my crew. And then January 1st, I leave Gong, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I look around and I'm like, I don't know any entrepreneurs. Like I've met some like people that are my dad's age. Like I don't know anyone that's 30 years old and runs their own business full time. And so a couple people I know have left to start their own thing. Like we mentioned Chris before. I've started to meet some other people and try to get connected to other people that I can like relate to in that way. But I'm looking to build my own community in that way because I feel like I need some support there. So, I mean that I can't underline that more of like how important it is, in my opinion, to, you want to be successful, but you want people to share it with, and you want people to talk about it with. You want like, if you're doing it all for you, it's like, man, that's a little empty at the end of the day, or at least it was for me.
It sounds like changing your surroundings played a big part in that, with driving back out east and moving to Chicago around some older friends and perhaps near family and whatnot. And I know something else you've done, which I find pretty cool, is seeking out challenge, seeking out discomfort, oftentimes physically. So you talked about going into the woods with a Navy SEAL. Can you talk more about that experience and what that meant to you?
Yeah, you did good research, Trent.
I've been wanting to ask you about this because I remember seeing just some obscure post about I went into the woods with Navy SEAL. Like some of it's confidential, can't share it all. It's like some David Goggins stuff. So yeah, unveil the curtain here for us.
So let me just tell you why real quick. So I do a thing that is called a Misogi once a year. I got this from Jesse Itzler, who's an entrepreneur. And Misogi loosely translates from Japanese to like a physical and spiritual cleansing. And so the way that Jesse talks about it is like do something so challenging once a year that you have to train for it, you got to prepare for it, and it's going to put you through hell so that you come out the other way as, you know, you have all this growth on the other side as a person. And I saw that a number of years ago. I'm like, I subscribe to that. And so I started doing Spartan races and marathons and all this other crazy shit. And so this year I decided, you know, I wanted to work on like my, I feel like working in a 9 to 5, you know, like computer job. Like I don't have any like wilderness skills. I'm not good with like my hands. I don't know if any of you can relate to that or not. And so I came across this guy, Chad Wright, who's a Navy SEAL. And now he's like an ultra marathon guy, runs 200 miles, all that type of stuff. And he does this event where him and his brother take 8 civilians out to the backcountry of Tennessee. And it's 3 days. And, you know, it's me and in this case, it was 7 other guys. You know, I was the youngest, aged all the way up to like 60 years old, from all over the country, all different types of jobs, you know, different ways of life. And the whole intent was Chad put us together as like a team, and he gave us a mission, almost like a military-esque mission. And we were set to accomplish that mission over 3 days. And the whole intent was, you know, teaching us along the way. There were some wilderness skills. There was like, how do you read the mountains without a map? And how do you light a fire even though it's raining? And, you know, how do you stay warm even though it's like 15 degrees at night and like lightly snowing and all this stuff? And that was cool. And then there was like leadership lessons of like, how are we going to work together from strangers as a team to accomplish this task? And then there was like the mental toughness aspect of like, you know, you're hiking like 12 hours a day with this heavy pack and all this type of stuff. And for me, like, I love doing stuff like that because I came out, you know, one with like, you know, I was really proud of myself, like conquering something that was really hard and I was a little afraid to do. 2, I felt like I came away with some skills. 3, you know, I feel like, you know, I was introduced to all these different people, and like at night we'd be sitting at the campfire after a long ass day, and Chad would be like yelling at us and, you know, getting in our faces throughout the day, for real. And he would like really like cut you deep on some of these like things he'd say. And then at night he'd be like telling all these stories about being a Navy SEAL and going in and getting bad guys and all these crazy moments. It's just like, man, I like being around people. I want to be around more people like that. Like I walk around the city and I see people and I'm like, man, I like these people are like all, you know, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know if these are all my people. And then I get out there and I'm like, dude, I want to be around that guy, or I want to be around this guy that I met that was like a fireman and he like runs a marathon with his fireman gear on. I'm like, these are the people that I want to be around and learn from. And so it's just a cool environment. And God only knows what I'll choose for next year. I haven't even thought about it yet.
Do you ever find in experiences like that, the suffering in the moment, you start to, some of your weaknesses exposed and you think, I'm never going to do this again. Like this sucks. And then you get back to reality, and then you instantly look back so favorably on that experience. Like, oh, it was actually really cool. I'm glad I did it. Like I'm going to do something like that again. Like, do you feel that way for experiences like that ever?
Absolutely. There was the thing I did last year was, it's from this hat. It's an event where you hike the vertical equivalent of Mount Everest, 29,029 feet. And one of the guys that put it together is this guy who's like a great expeditioner. He holds like a bunch of world records for going across Antarctica and all this stuff. And he described there's 2 types of fun. There's type 1 fun and type 2 fun. Type 1 fun is what 99% of people like, which is like drinking a beer with friends or like going to the beach. And I'm cool with doing both those things. Don't get me wrong. And then there's like type 2 fun, which is like really sucks in the moment, but then afterwards you're like, that was awesome. And you learn from it, and it's kind of jazzes you up, and it like, it exhilarates you. And so every once in a while I find that it's really helpful to do some type 2 fun stuff. And you got to be a little sick in the head, I feel like, to really enjoy it. But to me, there's just so many applicable lessons of like, there were plenty of moments that Navy SEAL weekend where like I wanted to quit and I felt terrible and I wanted to just like stop. But I didn't. And I remember some of the things I was thinking, and there's plenty of times as an entrepreneur that I want to stop and that I want to quit. And there's plenty of times as a salesperson that's like, man, this sucks. And like, I'm never going to hit quota, or I'm never going to reach my goals. And so the more, like, if you can get into a mind frame of like, I do hard shit, and you can prove that to yourself over and over again, then whatever you want to do, if you want to be a salesperson, entrepreneur, teacher, whatever it is, like, you're teaching yourself, you're framing your brain, at least that's what I believe, to be able to do that. And you can apply those same skills to anything.
I similarly want to be around people like that, so I'm glad we're collaborating on this. And I always think I just want to be around just a group of just like-minded savages, people that just want to make money, be successful, have the best relationships, have the best physical fitness. But I feel like in order to get into that room, I need to be one of those people that would be accepted in that place, to be one of those people that someone else would say, I want to be like that in a way. But I think I constantly find myself in this limbo area of pushing, but not quite pushing to my limits, but then questioning, should I sign up for another marathon, or should I go do this? And it's almost this place of like comfort, but not discomfort. But I think it comes down to that mission element, which you talked about. Over 3 days, we're just focused on getting over this mountain, accomplishing this task. And I think that's, looking back, that's what I found a lot of solace working in a sales job of, they say, hey, here's your sales target. And you have this sense of purpose of, okay, I need to go close $1 million in revenue this year, and it's set for you. But have you found when you go off on your own and you're responsible for setting that for yourself, you lose sight of that mission at all ever?
Well, I want to bring up one thing from what you were talking about, which is like around pushing yourself as well. And Alex said this when we were at the retreat a number of times, and it, like, I can't get it out of my head. We're talking about having a vision. Part of the exercise we did was like, what's your vision? Like, who do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Did some visualization. We did some journaling. We talked about it. Like, tap into that. And a bunch of people shared theirs. And he said the point of a vision, the purpose of it, is not necessarily to achieve that vision, but who it causes you to be today. So if I say 20 years from now, I want to be this guy, I want to be this version of Tom. Well, how do I show up as that person now? Is that version of Tom, like, does he get up early or does he snooze? Does he make his cold calls, or does he, hit the skip task? Is he kind to people? Does he smile at the barista when they make a coffee, or is he on his phone the whole time? Is he patient with his friends and with his family and with his loved ones, or is he like kind of an asshole? It's like those, to me, like, that's what I've been thinking about, is like, okay, I want to be badass. I want to make money. I want to be successful. I want to have great relationships. I want to be fit. I want all these things that you want, Trent. And it's like, okay, how I could do a lot of those things now. I got to show up as that person now. And I've been like trying to challenge myself to do that. And I find it's easier. It's tough, but it's still easier when you have other people that it's like you're sharing that with. And it's like, me and you might be sharing, like, yeah, okay, I'm, I made all my cold calls today or whatever. I I worked out 5 days in a row this week, and whatever the thing is that you're working on. So I had to go on that tangent, but just like talking about the mission, I feel like part of something that I'm learning as well is like trying to remind myself of that vision, because it's easy to get stuck in the day to day. And I'm someone that's like I'm a task executor. If I know I need to make my cold calls, for example, just as an easy example, like, I'll go out and I'll do them. I'm not going to skip them. I'm very disciplined. I'll get it done. But sometimes what I don't always do is remind myself of, like, why am I doing that? What is the vision? What is my purpose for doing these things? And when you do that, it makes it easier to like follow through on those tasks. And so when you think about the mission, I find it helpful, and what I've been trying to do is like write it down and like spend some time with it like throughout the day or throughout the week of like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right? Because if I don't, one of the things that I am not good at is like comparing myself to others. And so I'll look at, Chris Orlob, for example. And this is truly, I truly do look at him because I admire him a lot. And I'm like, fuck, like he's killing it. Like, why am I not, making as much money? Or I look at the dude on Instagram who has the car or the whatever, the six pack. And it's like, damn, but if the more that I write down and think about and, focus on my own mission, that helps me follow through on like what I need to do versus like what I am trying to do to impress others or like what I think I need to do. But that's hard. That's a struggle for me.
And I think that's why people resonate with conversations like this, because I don't think we're alone in some of these issues here. And I definitely see that. Scrolling down LinkedIn, I know, I just have a sense of some of those other people in the space that may be selling courses or just are similar background, whatnot. And you're like, oh, okay, how many likes did they get? Oh, they put a link here, plug in their course. And like, it kind of gives you that feeling in a way, which is, it's hard to describe. I don't know if it's jealousy, anger, envy, insecurity, whatever it is. But I try and use that as a guiding force to say, okay, there's something I can learn here rather than resenting them. They're not taking away from my success. What can I learn here from this? Okay, maybe I should plug my product more, whatever it may be. So I know that when a lot of people get in ruts, of whatever it may be, and I know you were in a rut at one point, so you reached out to a guy named Scott Leese. He's got the surfboard in his LinkedIn thing, and you're like, hey, it seems like you're doing some cool stuff. Can I help? Whatever it may be. How did that work out? Because I think you hear these stories of people reaching out to more successful people saying, hey, I'll work for you for free in exchange for learning from you. Talk about that experience.
Yeah, something that I've tried to do a lot in my career is find people that are doing things that I admire or want to do and try to learn from them. And the challenge with that is that when you're young and don't have a lot of experience, those people don't necessarily want to talk to you. And so that's one reason actually why I started my podcast was like, I want to interview cool people. I was emailing them to get coffee. They didn't answer me. Then I would, start a podcast. And now when they have a book coming out, all of a sudden they want to talk for an hour. And then I try to build a relationship from there. And so in the example of Scott, he's worth a follow if you're in sales listening to this, big time sales influencer, author, sales leader, all that stuff. And so I admire Scott, and I heard him on a podcast. This was in 2020. And I was doing like COVID stuff and like not seeing people. And so I heard him on a podcast. I'm like, this dude is awesome. And so I emailed him and I was like, I loved your pod. This is what I took away from it. I'd love to try to help you with what you're doing. Would you be open to a chat sometime? And he got back to me. He was like, sure. And so we talked for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I told him a little about me. I was, said how impressed I was with him. And I was like, what can I do for you? Just like, I don't know. I got an extra hour a week. I'm not going to quit my job and do stuff for free for him. But like, I could dedicate an hour a week to this guy that is probably making 10 times more than I am, that knows 10 times more people, that, is 10 times smarter than I am, that if I do a little bit for him, maybe there's going to be some benefit to me from that, or maybe he'll help me in some way. And so I started like doing some like blog work for him and like writing some stuff for him and like helped him out in that way. And then, I was doing that for I don't know how many, like probably 6 months or a year or something like that. And then like over time, he started to like respect me. And over time, like we started to get on more calls, and he, helped me when I was going for my interview to get into Gong. And then he introduced me to like sales leaders for my podcast. And then when I launched the course, he wrote a testimonial for it, and like on and on and on. He's helped me a ton with like the entrepreneurial journey, because he's, also has his own 7-figure business. And so for me, you can't go around working for free for everyone all the time. But if you see someone, like if I was like a 22-year-old SDR or a new SDR, it doesn't matter how old you are, and I wanted to like kill it in sales, I would go to Trent Dressel, for real. I'm not just saying this. I would DM Trent and I'd say, Trent, I'm new. I'm a hustler. I want to get into, I'm trying to get into sales. I want to be successful. I want to help you out. I want to do some stuff for you for free. Would you take a call? And not to put you on the spot, but that's what I would do. And if you took the call, I bet you that there's something that you could offload to someone for an hour a week, unpaid, that would be helpful to you, maybe editing this podcast or doing other administrative work. And, if that person did a good job and like was hungry and humble and like helped you out, and then over time, like they'd probably earn your trust, and then perhaps, something would come of that, a friendship, a mentorship, and then, you would probably want to help them out. And I've had people do that for me, and like, without me asking, they like plug my course on LinkedIn, or they tell their friends about it, or they get me a guest speaker for my podcast. There's one woman in particular who's done that so many times. And I'm like, I'll do anything for her. Like, I wish I could hire her. I'm not making enough money in the business yet to like hire someone full time, but I wish I could hire her. I'd get her a job anywhere I could, like introduce her to whoever she wanted. So there's like the be valuable, to someone else in order to like get value in return. That's the mantra there.
It's so true. It really is all about people. All the best things I have in my life, at least financially right now, the opportunities available were through other people that were already in the game, that were playing it at a higher level than me. And for one reason or another, we were able to get in contact. I was able to demonstrate some value without immediately saying, hey, well, give me. It's just, hey, whether it's a compliment. So for example, my relationship with Chris Orlob, I genuinely admired what he was doing. And I was just like, hey, like, it's like, I think your delivery is incredible. Like, I really think I have a lot to learn from you. And that's what then led to an actual genuine relationship. Is it started out as following someone, engaging with them, complimenting them. Months go by. Okay, well, hey, maybe there's an opportunity for us to collaborate on something. And that's really how it starts. And it's so hard to find people like that in day-to-day life, at least I find. In Columbus, Ohio, maybe in Chicago,
totally.
Walking down the street, hey, I don't think this is necessarily the person I'm going to go climb a mountain with. But there's a lot of people like that available online. But I think it speaks to becoming valuable in and of yourself. So whether you can build distribution or just level up as a person to the point where you have a skill set to offer. So that's at least what I found. And it's possible to get a hold of anyone. And you got a hold of Mark Cuban. You were able to email Mark Cuban, the Shark, and he seemingly helped you with your sales game back in the day. You pulled one of those lessons earlier in the conversation. You said, I now have this to-do list for the day, 50 calls, I'm not going to skip any. How did you get a hold of Mark Cuban, and what did he teach you?
Yeah, this was 2017, I think. I was a couple years into sales and like off to a pretty good start. And I remember it was Friday. It was March 31st. End of the quarter, and it was my first quarter that I missed quota. And I remember it was like, 3, 4, 5 p.m. Like people start to shuffle out. They close their deals or they don't or whatever, and they go out to happy hour to celebrate. And I found myself like not wanting to do that, alone in the office. And I'm just trying to like figure out what went wrong. Like just like trying to figure it out. Like why did I fail in my goal here? And I'm listening to a podcast while I'm doing it. And Mark Cuban was speaking. I don't remember which podcast it was. But I'm like listening to him and I'm going through my numbers. I'm like, what happened here? And like, I don't even know what compelled me to do this. But, I'm like, fuck it. I start Googling like Mark Cuban's email address, which was quite easy to find at the time. I don't know if it still is. I found it. And so I'm like, I don't know, what spurred me, but I just shot him an email. I'm like, I gave him my story. I'm like, hey, Mark, it's Friday at 8 p.m., here in San Francisco, and, just missed my number, and I'm, 24, and I'm a salesperson, and this is what I think's going on, and blah, blah, blah. And, like, I send it to him, and, like, just typing it kind of made me feel better, get it off, like, vent a little bit. And then, like, 6 minutes later, I get a response from him. And I have seen somewhere that he, like, reads every email. I don't know if he still responds to everyone. He used to. And he gave me, like, 3 tips. It was pretty brief. He, like, gave me 3 tips and, like, a sentence or 2 for each one. And one of them was, to plan your day. Like, never leave the office without planning your next day before. Like, plan your cold calls, plan your meetings, all that type of stuff. Number 2, which is my favorite, was you're getting paid to learn. So, like, yes, you're going to have up and downs with your income. You're going to hit quota. Sometimes you're not. But, like, they are paying you to learn. Like, learn these skills. Learn how to be a salesperson. Learn how to be a leader. Learn how to do a presentation. All these types of things they will pay so many benefits to you later in life. So like get that through your head and read books and all that type of stuff. And then the third one was I just had it on the tip of my tongue, and now it's like find one part of your sales process each month to improve. Focus only on that one, and then move on to the next one. Focus on discovery, then cold email, then negotiation, and so on and so forth. And like that was pretty solid advice. And like he didn't have to get on a call with me. Like I took that to heart, and I felt like with those three and just like kind of having some wind in my sails from the experience, like I had my best sales year to date. I was like 130 or 40% to goal for the year, even though I was like 70% in the first quarter, and crush it, and like had my highest W-2 at that time, and like, was riding high. And so you never know, man, like shoot your shot out there. I always say that on LinkedIn. It's like, find someone that you admire, maybe like, try Mark Cuban, but there's also plenty of people a little below his rung that like, they want to help people out. Like people genuinely want to help other people succeed, especially if they've already been successful. They find oftentimes like an internal desire to pay it forward and pass it on. So shoot your shot and see what you can learn.
How easy would it have been for you have just to gone to happy hour that day, had a few beers, and just been like, whatever, like dull quarter, whatever, next quarter will be good. But rather you probably didn't feel too good about yourself, and you were sitting there and saying, what can I learn from this? And then all of a sudden that one insight and the pushing through that just pain threshold led to then it sounds like a lot of growth.
Yeah. I think that's intrinsic. I think that is something that's in someone's DNA. Like I've done a lot of sales training, sales coaching, been on sports teams, all that type of stuff. And like some people have it and some people don't. Like some people miss their number and they're like, let's have some beers and let's blow it off. And there's some people that's like, I will not sleep tonight because of that. And like, I'm pissed off and I need to fix that. I need to make that happen. And I think you can develop it. And I think you can hit a point where like you reach a breaking point and then you weren't that person and now you are. But you can't like make someone have that mindset. If you're a leader, you can't like force someone to think like that. That's got to come within, and that's got to be like, you got to be driven to have high goals and high expectations, and want to get better. So there was plenty of times probably before that where I was the guy that was having beers and whatnot and forgot about it. But like there was a point in me where I was like, dude, I want so bad to be successful, and this is not working right now, and something needs to change. And I was just like getting really competitive about it. So I know you have that in you. And I know plenty of people that I've met that's just like there's something in them that's just like it needs to be untapped. It's just like it needs to get better, and I like those types of people.
I remember when I missed my quota for the first time in about 2 years. I was an AE. I hit my first 6-7 quarters. Given I was ramping, quota started to get way bigger, and then a deal fell through at the end. And I knew I was going to miss quota. Like it was the first time in a long time where I knew I was going to miss quota after having had that feeling of I'm going to hit it no matter what. So that final day of the quarter, I dressed up in a full suit. Never have done this before. Dressed up in a full suit to go to the office, and everyone's like, Trent, oh my gosh, what customer are you meeting with? Like this is going to be great. Like they're like, why are you dressed up though? I'm like, I'm going, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down in style. So I knew I was going to miss quota. So I said, I'm just going to get in the nicest clothes I can, feel like a piece of shit in the office. Some dude across the corner closed the biggest deal in office history, and I'm just like hating my life. And I remember making a video talking about my psychology after missing quota for the first time in 3 years, and tried to look in the mirror and say, where did I fall short? And ultimately, there's always something you could have done better, whether it's just better prospecting management, or listen to more stuff like this for self-development. So it's out there. So let's wrap up with this, Tom. What is next? What is next for Tom in these next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot, man. I think I think like the first 6 months of entrepreneurship were challenging. Like I made a ton of mistakes, man. I made every rookie mistake in the book. And so, and I'll still make mistakes, and that's cool. That's part of the game. So I still feel like, I'm hitting a little bit of a stride here, but I still feel like I'm just like scratching the surface at what it means to be an entrepreneur and the type of entrepreneur that I want to be. And so for the next 3 to 6 months, for me, I think there's more that I want to do to like, how do I step into like who I want to be 20 years from now? Kind of what I was saying before, like how do I show up more often, like with better energy? How many times, like how do I never skip prospecting, never skip my workout, always show empathy with people, like always feel gratitude? Like how do I get better at those things, which are more internal? Externally, like I've been doing my prospecting boot camp for a while. I'm actually about to launch a second type of boot camp to serve people. I really like doing those. And I love teaching people and working with them and coaching them. We got another one of those sales retreat immersions coming up in November in Austin, Texas. I'll talk to Alex and Claire about doing a Columbus one in 2024. We'll put that on the docket. And just trying to learn and grow, man. Just like keeping my options open for like opportunities and, trying to help serve salespeople, trying to get better myself, trying to enjoy life. And who knows? We're only a couple hours away, man. We should be doing like we should get a goal before the end of the year to meet up in person and grab a dinner or something. That would be good.
Dude, I'd love that. My dad and I talked about, are you downtown Chicago?
Yeah, I'm in the city, yeah.
We talked about heading to the city for the Notre Dame Ohio State game, which is the September 26th, whatnot. So if we end up coming, I'll definitely let you know, and you never know what that could lead to.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah,
man.
that would be cool. I didn't even know that was happening.
It's going to be a big weekend, and we're not a diehard Ohio State fan, but a lot of people in Columbus are. But you get it with the Midwest energy, so we'll do all that. But for everyone still listening, go check out Tom on LinkedIn. You can just find him, Tom Al AI Mo. So he's like an AI, knows everything about prospecting. So join the prospecting boot camp, follow him on LinkedIn, and stay tuned for more episodes like this one.